Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity to present. We are going to share with you kind of the end of the first phase of the Route 23 Corridor Study Action Plan. We've got about 20 slides that we're going to run through. Love to have, if you have questions or anything I can clarify, please ask me feel free to interrupt me, I guess is the best way to say it. I have Chris Will and Aaron Frazier from our office, and I'm Chris Herman. And obviously you all know Steve Cutler's here as well and can help answer questions. The study has been supported by a number of agencies, organizations, as well as you, and thank you for your support. As part of this, I think there's a lot of interest in looking at what can be done with the 23 corridor, how do we improve it from where it is today. Basically going to go through the study area, talk about the people we've talked to, what we've heard, and some initial thoughts. It's really the summary of today's presentation. The objectives for this really is how do we create a shared vision? How do we get dialogue between all the different agencies, actors, government entities, different landowners, community to talk about what is the possibilities, what are the issues, what are the opportunities to solve along the 23 corridor. Particularly, do we look at what are the possibilities with infrastructure improvements? Are there some patterns and things we can do with infrastructure, with planning to get ahead of some things and maybe think about how we can improve the direction? And what are the actionable strategies that can come out of this? And this will make more sense as I get into more detail. But basically, and you're very familiar with this, we're looking at the 23 corridor from the county line to the city, as well as north of Delaware and Troy Township. Talk about what's the situation, what are the opportunities. And what we heard, and again, this is all stuff I think you're aware of, Delaware is the most highly educated county in Ohio. You have the highest average household income in Ohio, and fastest growing county, have been for a while in Ohio. All these things, people are coming to live in this area, and 23 corridor is one of those key arteries where people are living on. But at the same time, we're not quite attracting, I think, all of the economic development side, the balance there, and that's one of the things we want to talk about. Growth trends. Again, the growth has been amazing in Delaware County, and so even now we're approaching 210,000. We're going to be close to 300,000 by 2040, and as you know, a lot of that growth is happening in the southern half of Delaware County. One of the issues is because of this fast-paced growth, it really is incredible growth, it continues to outpace infrastructure, so we continue to work hard on trying to keep up with that growth with our infrastructure. And that's I think particularly the roadways. And so we need to think about now and continue to think forward about what are the opportunities that we need to be investing in from an infrastructure point of view, and also make sure that we're thinking about things so that new development doesn't preclude connections or needed improvements in the future. So how do we identify what we need to be preserving and getting ahead of? The study that we're working on, we are getting close to finishing the green part, tasks 1 and 2, where we really get an understanding of all the plans. There's been a lot of great work that's been done. Talk to a large number of stakeholders and get their views and inputs and not have them share their knowledge. And then we're looking at the opportunities that bubble up out of that. Where we'll be going from here is the part B, the task 3 and 4, where we're going to take this and start looking at how do we apply this, what are the possibilities, what are some catalytic things, what are priority improvements that we should be focusing on, and come up with policy recommendations and implementation strategy. And we will be coming back to share that with you when we get to that point in draft form. We have talked to a large number of people. You can see the list on the left, this is the list of plans we've looked at. We looked at a large number of plans that have been done. There's been a lot of good planning and thought that has gone into what's going on in the county. Take away from these plans, and again, I think this is all stuff that you're aware of. We have a large number of bedroom communities, basically great residential areas. People want to live here, we've got great schools, but then they're traveling to go to work. The thoroughfares really are the economic drivers and take people between where they live and where they work. There's been a large number of projects have been identified. A number have been funded, and you're doing work on the infrastructure right now, which is great. There's more, and we need to be thinking about how to achieve those next tier of projects. There are some operational opportunities in access management and technology to be implemented, I think, that will help out some of the corridors. And you've done a lot of great work with the water and sewer, centralized water and sewer, and so there's really capacity throughout this area, which will continue to help growth, but also means we need to be anticipating it with our corresponding transportation improvements. So like I mentioned, we've talked to a lot of people, got a lot of great input, and they're listed on the left. So we've talked to the Planning Commission, County Economic Development, and Bob. I've talked to ODOT, talked to your county engineer's office, talked to representatives from the townships, the sewer district, the school districts, had great input from the Delaware County Foundation and a number of private sector landowners in the area. We are still working on scheduling a meeting, hopefully soon here, with the City of Delaware. They're in the middle of their comprehensive plan process, and so they're excited about sharing some of that with us, as well as meeting with Troy Township to talk to them about their issues and opportunities. The kind of themes that we're hearing, there's interest in trying to simplify the development process, and really I think the heart of that is every township has their own zoning and their own way of doing things and their own process, and the zoning districts within the different townships are different. So when you come in, you try to figure out, particularly if you're looking at a whole corridor like 23, you're playing with different regulations in different places and trying to figure that out. And getting some alignment both in terms of what can and can't be built, what's the appropriate land use, and working with the townships to get some alignment, particularly on the 23 corridor. I think the interesting thing, the good news is that I think a lot of the townships see the 23 corridor as the place to be putting higher intensity development and more dense development. So if you're picking a place to put it, they see 23 as that logical place. So again, that gets kind of point two, which is we need to be thinking about that in terms of land use, in terms of zoning, in terms of reserving that area along 23 for that higher density development. Because if we're building consensus, that's where it goes. That's what we should be trying to place there. Everyone loves the quality of life in this area. They love coming here. They love living here. And because of the schools, we've got a really great workforce. And then how do we balance that with, I think, the employment opportunities? There's limited areas. One of the things we heard, I think one of the motivators of the study is when large regional economic development projects announce interest in Central Ohio. This 23 corridor area is not something that rises to the top, sometimes not even considered. And so there's interest in saying, well, we'd love to see more employment opportunities here. How do we raise that up into consideration? And then there's a relationship, and again, you all know this, between the 23 corridor, between Interstate 71, between routes 36 and 42, and the interplay between those and moving traffic within the county and through the county and providing that access that we need for economic development. Also concerned, and I've touched on it, about balancing growth. If we have large amount of residential development happening here, in fact, development in residential is so popular that really that's where the economic return is right now in this area. How do we try to balance that explosive residential growth with the employment opportunities? How do we provide for that? And then, as you're familiar with, I think once there's established neighborhoods and residents, they're very concerned about what gets built around them. So again, trying to build consensus and say, how do we get everyone to buy into where we put some of this development and get support behind it so we're not having issues with community opposition to projects. When we look at this area, we kind of looked at concentrations of development, and these are kind of roughly 13 in this area. The ones we're most focused are 1 through 5. So these are kind of areas of focused development projects along the 23 corridor. And zooming in on those areas, we looked at existing land uses, and early on, your quick reaction to that first bullet is, wow, only 67% of this area is developed. So, wow, there's really our opportunity to think about how we guide development. It's not a foregone conclusion what this area of 23 looks like. But then you get into the next level and you realize that actually there's a lot of planned developments already that are going through the process. And so when you start counting those up, you end up with 9,300 acres predicted to be developed and as residential. So we're adding to that residential development. Again, because it's a great place for residents to live and it's an attractive opportunity, and developers know how to do this, and there's a market for it. But again, how do we integrate some other things? Should we be integrating some other uses? So yeah, 3,500 acres are planned for residential development. That's 5,500 single-family units and 2,100 condos and apartments that are already in the pipeline when you add that to what's already been developed. So that's the land use kind of summary. So there's still some strategic opportunities, but there is a lot of development happening. Again, I think what we all feel and experience. Traffic lights, and just thinking about movement on the 23 corridor, there's 35 traffic lights. It's really the intersections. I mean, that's where the slowdowns happen. You know, the segments between lights, you know, really is where traffic moves. It's when you're coming to stops at the signals, so that's where you worry about, as traffic planning, you worry about the intersections and the traffic signals. Basically, between a signalized and unsignalized segment, if this was just free-flowing without all the intersections, you would improve the traffic flow. And again, we're not saying that you want to do that. It's just the impact of what these signals do. And because of the heavy east-west movement, we have major intersections where we have a lot of traffic to get through east-west, and then we have a lot of traffic to get through north-south. And so we've got these kind of pinch points that end up causing some of the impact to traffic flow on the 23 corridor. Also, I think very interesting is when you look at 71 and the access 71 provides, you know, we only have two, I guess if you really call the Polaris Interchange 3 interchanges, access points in Delaware County on 71, but really the most amazing thing is this segment of 71 is the second busiest freight corridor in the state. So that's how much traffic. So freight traffic is coming from all over the place, all directions, including through Delaware County to get to 71. And so this segment just carries a large volume of freight traffic. Also, Chris did a great job with modeling. We can look at how far you can get geographically using the existing road network. So you see, because of where we have these access points on 71, the blue indicates the areas that you can travel to within, what was it, 15 minutes, yeah. So you can see why these are the areas that become more attractive, I think, for kind of the economic development, industrial development, business development, because of these, the access to those interchanges. And so, and I'm cheating ahead a little bit, you know, the improvements that you're making to some of the east-west road networks that make the connection to 71 better help extend the range of where you could think about really guiding and attracting development that's not just residential. And then, again, this freight highway network is much more than just 71, and we're seeing it. You see the impacts of freight traffic on 42 and 36, as well as 23, to get access to the various corridors and into Central Ohio. Chris, anything you want to add to this?
No, you did a great job.
Okay. Also, this is, we call these heat maps. This shows you where the concentrations of employment are within the county. The red being areas of highest employment, green being areas of employment. So you can see where the concentrated development areas, employment centers are. And again, we have some along 23, obviously Polaris on either side of the interchange of 71, and the industrial park around the city of Delaware, and growth along 36 between Delaware and 71. So we have, what, 97,000 employees countywide. And in our study area, we have 12,000 in the concentrated study area, 50,000 in the broader area, of which 23 plays an important piece. We look at the workforce and where people are working, where they're living. There's 81,000 workers within 10 minutes of this corridor. Central Ohio, though, has 1.1 million workers. So this area really is 14% of the entire workforce is within this 10-minute commute of this corridor. If we brought it out to the 24 minutes, which is the average commute in Central Ohio, that's the average commute that people have on a daily basis, we reach 390,000 workers. So that's a large area. You can see you go outside the county edges in different directions. And again, this is all based on the transportation network and how far you can get, how fast you can get. The interesting thing is employees that work in Delaware County are coming from all over, including surrounding counties. So we have 48,000 people are commuting into the county. And of those, 25% are coming in for lower wage jobs. So you're importing a number of those people, but then you're exporting a number of high-paying jobs. 65,000 people commute out of the county every day. The largest number is commuting to Franklin County, and 62% of those 65,000 are leaving for high-paying jobs. And so this gets to, I think, the heart of one of the things we were talking about, which is, can we create some employment centers in Delaware County that keep some of those people that are commuting, particularly to Franklin County, to work in Delaware County? How do we create those environments? How do we do that? Because that'll balance some of the growth and will also reduce some of the pressure on the road network. Or at least as we add more people, it reduces that impact on the road network. So that's a 17,000 commuter person net loss. And again, not that that's a bad thing, it's where and the type of jobs we're losing out of Delaware and thinking about, all right, well, how do we attract them here? And we'll provide all this information to you. So early observations, there's physical constraints to growth. We've got, a fantastic scenic river system. We've got the Olentangy watershed. There's a lot of slopes related to that. It's kind of a natural place to have open space and preserve that area. We've got railway systems we have to worry about crossing with roads. Got existing development in a lot of areas. So what do we do with all that? We've got to worry about congestion and bottlenecks, particularly at those interchanges, at the intersections. We've got limited interstate access. Obviously, we're working on that. Limited connectivity when we talk about the reach of the commute. And then this mismatch between where people live, where people work, and the need, and it's not just here in Delaware, it's statewide, of how do we do some of these infrastructure improvements that we need to do, particularly on the transportation side. We've heard about tax incentives to make some of these things happen. We've talked about, and done a great job now, I think, really aligning economic development efforts, but in the past we've heard about some fragmented efforts in trying to focus where we want to see development in the county. We talked about the zoning and trying to get some continuity here. Another thing I didn't touch on, but I'll touch on some more here, is just the identity of 23. It doesn't really have, I'll use the word brand, but it doesn't have, you don't think of it as a thing other than a place you need to travel through. And if we're going to lure some of this kind of employment, I think we want to desire and add some of this density, we need to think about creating an identity, both physically and in the minds of people of what 23 is, and it's a place you want to be rather than pass through. And then again, we need to come up with, I think, a plan that we build community support for and get some alignment on here so people all say, yeah, aha, I understand why we as a county want to do this and why these are areas and improvements what we want to go after. So this is a map of all of the planned roadway infrastructure improvements in one place, and we'll give you a much more detailed list about timelines and costs. This is all, we've shared it with ODOT, shared it with the county engineer's office, and they agree this is a good list. And it shows where we're trying to have both improvements, new road connections, obviously the interchange, and so these are all important pieces of trying to move people around and connect to the main arteries within the county that carry traffic. Chris, anything you want to add to this? again, keep residents here working in the county. We want to address this imbalance, I think, so it's not just a residential base that we have, it's also an employment base that we have, particularly in the southern part of Delaware County. We want to change the perception of the corridor, which again, part of this, I think, we want to share this and get reaction. We've been starting to say this is making some kind of destination along 23. So what this map is showing, hopefully you can see it, is kind of the centers, mixed-use centers, employment centers in the region. So if you think about Polaris Town Center, you think about places like historic Powell, historic Delaware, historic uptown Westerville, Old Dublin, the new Bridge Street project in Dublin. Think about Evans Farm, which is this new village mixed-use development, which is exciting. But you look at where that is and you say, well, there's kind of an area that doesn't have that along the 23 corridor. And if we try to create something, might that change perceptions? Might that create kind of this mixed-use environment that we can attract some of this kind of development that doesn't currently look at this area? So something to think about, something we're going to explore further. Be interested in your thoughts on that. And then are there some things we can do? You know, there's the big muscle moves, the expensive moves of trying to separate traffic and build, you know, heavy infrastructure improvements like ODOT did with the 270-23 interchange where you're separating traffic and grade. Yeah, that's big, expensive things. It's probably not something that everyone has an appetite for, both funding-wise as well as politically, just the impact to the corridor. But we do think there are things that can be done that can improve traffic flow, particularly the intersections. ODOT is testing much more advanced coordinated traffic signals that work together and actually understand real-time the traffic on the roadways so they can adjust to the traffic. They're doing some demonstrations on 33 in Union County. I think they're interested in some, as they prove that technology, interested in trying some other places. I think they would agree that 23 is a great place to try that. So that's something to keep in mind. And then you're already working, and we just wholeheartedly support continuing to have development build the backage roads and have the county work on infilling the missing gaps, because providing parallel north-south roadway opportunities for local traffic helps reduce the impacts on 23 and is a really important thing. There's also, as you're getting development happening between 71 and 23 along the railroad tracks, Evan Farms, efforts to build a north-south kind of parallel road system is also really important. It's great that you're doing that and need to continue to do that. So we see those as important moves to try to help the traffic flow in the county. And then we are going to look at land use maps, continue to talk to the township and the county, planning about, I think, some alignment opportunities that maybe do something like a zoning overlay that would be consistent among the entire area along 23, so that it would kind of establish similar rules so people understand what they're doing when they develop along that. Also continue to work on a thoroughfare plan, talk about the land uses, and continue to apply access management in the corridor. And also think about what are some strategic pieces that we need to preserve or designate for certain types of uses to achieve the things that we're talking about that have been identified in this first part of the study. So that's a quick overview. So we're going to be finishing up the last of our discussions. I left out the Delaware County Foundation's another group that we've been trying to set up a time to meet with. We're going to meet with them. Finance Authority, thank you. Finance Authority. And then what we're going to do is take this input and anything you'd like to share with us now or in the next couple of weeks, and then we're going to be looking at some of the alternatives, ideas, and concepts for some of these strategic areas, looking at priority improvements, helping to kind of prioritize what things would have impacts, what would be the phase one things that will help set the stage for things that come after. And then we'll give you recommendations and implementation strategy. And again, this will be a draft form. We'll continue to have conversations and massage this with from everyone we've been talking to. So have a great crew. Everyone we talked to is very interested, optimistic, want to help. So we've appreciated all the discussion input we've gotten so far.
Boy, thank you very much. Excellent presentation. Commissioner Romero?
I just have a couple of comments.
Sure, absolutely.
I'm sorry. The map that showed, I guess I'm asking for your definition.
Yeah.
You're talking about higher income jobs leaving the county.
Oh, yeah, right.
Lower income, but that's all kind of relative.
It is.
Well, I'm not sure what that means. Do you mean that the lower income jobs that are coming in are paying less than those that are leaving? Or the ones that are coming from, let's say, Marion, they'll probably make less in Marion than they make in Delaware County. So in that theory, they'd be higher paid.
Great. I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a really important point. I think in no way saying it's bad that surrounding counties are coming here to work. I think that's great, and you are providing an employment center for the region, which I think is really important. And every time you look at unemployment statistics, Delaware's got the lowest unemployment, which is great, and you're helping out the people that are living in other counties, which is wonderful. I think the biggest takeaway, to your point, is probably less that than it is. We have a lot of people that are working in Columbus and Franklin County. The question is, can we create some of that kind of employment centers in Delaware rather than having them so many travel into Franklin County?
And to continue that observation, to your point, we never want people not to go to Franklin County to work
Yes.
because those are the higher paying jobs. In a lot of cases, the leaders are living in Delaware County.
Absolutely.
And that's good for our county.
It sure is.
But creating job centers is extremely important. So I think we're saying the same. I just want to clarify.
Yes, thank you for clarifying. That is exactly the main takeaway. I think I obscured it and everything else, but the main takeaway is, yeah, creating employment centers here would be a good thing.
But you have to train a highly educated workforce here, why send them somewhere else to go work and get the same high quality jobs here?
But you still want them to go to the Nationwides and the
Absolutely.
major employers in Columbus, so that it's,
Having
one
leaders,
does not preclude the other.
having leaders here is great, yes.
Any other
So,
comments? It certainly reinforces as I come in along by 71 and then in on 36, 37, and I see trucks, and I see many, 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 many trucks, and I thought, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, it is, and that just reinforces what I thought. I didn't realize it was the second busiest freight corridor in the state, just second to I-71 in Cincinnati, but I believe it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I
thank
see
you. Great job presentation and great information and very helpful.
Great. And we're making this available to everyone, make sure it's available to you as well.
Oh, great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
so what's the next step?
Yeah, next step then.
So next step, we're still taking input, and I think we're going to try to figure out recommendations and even some physical ideas on how to address some of these things.
Okay.
And come and share those in just kind of conceptual form, get some feedback, and then we'll try to finalize a plan here probably before the summer.
When?
Before the summer.
Before the summer.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you
Yeah, thank you.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay. No one else wishes to speak? We are adjourned. Hit that.